Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about that new Injury Reserve album that dropped not too long ago. I've heard it about twice so far, and I think I've gotten a decent fix of everything I could get out of it. So, if you're not familiar with Injury Reserve, they are a rap group that are from Arizona. They've been active for a while, but I hadn't heard of them until an Underachievers show that I went to a couple years back. It might have been like 2017. And they were playing music from their then most recent album, Drive It Like It's Stolen. And that was my first exposure to their music, and I liked a lot of what I was hearing. A lot of interesting production and a lot of unconventional vocal deliveries. It was cool. It was different and really refreshing. And now I do have to mention the recent passing of their third member, Stepa. He passed away not too long ago, and it was really unexpected. Rest in peace. And I remember when he did pass, when we heard about it, when they announced it on their Twitter account. I remember wondering, what their next step was going to be. I wasn't sure if they were going to continue releasing music as a group. I didn't know if they were going to just stop putting out music as a group. And spoiler alert, they did continue to put out music. They put out and this is their first album since his passing. But he is featured on some of the songs here. I guess they had some recordings that they had gotten before he passed. So I thought it was really cool to hear him on a couple of these tracks. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna get right into it. There's I think it's about 11 songs on this album, not too lengthy, but I do have to say that this album was difficult to get through. It is not an easy listen. It is demanding of the listener. So yeah, do with that information what you will. So beginning with track number one entitled "Outside." There's some pitched down vocals. I think it's just mainly Richie on the song. Really clean. It didn't sound distorted as pitched up or down vocals tend to sound. The This is the intro track, and it's really abstract. Really great at setting the stage for what this album was gonna sound like. Unconventional in every sense of the word. There's all sorts of synths and samples playing throughout this song, and ultimately culminates into what I would describe as controlled chaos. Really, all sorts of stuff going on, honestly. The drums are really minimal, though, and the vocal delivery is always a plus for me. The verse that we get from Richie on here sounds a bit awkward, almost like Richie stumbling over himself, and it's really theatrical. And now the outro of this track is really chaotic, just like the first, part of the song. Crazy breath samples used throughout this part, creating like a really anxious energy. And now there are some melodic elements to kind of keep the listener engaged, if you're not already engaged by his vocals. Track number two, Superman That. This might have been one of the singles they had released. Really hectic drum breaks throughout this song. To me, reminiscent of IDM, if you're familiar with that style of music. In a nutshell, I guess like a subgenre of electronica that features like really over the top drum breaks and all sorts of samples, and it's just complex. It's just really, it's not easy to follow. Sometimes you lose a sense of like a groove or like a flow for you to keep you grounded. So I think that was a cool choice by the producer who does great work for them, Parker. But yeah, anyhow, there's some guitar samples on this song. Not too many elements of a melody to kind of follow in the instrumental. Um, but the vocals that we do get on this song, they're sung vocals from Richie. They've got some auto tune thrown on them, and that's the melody for the listener to follow. But the instrumental on its own is really atonal, honestly. The song, to me, it was clear that it was going to be pushing the listener's limits, and it was at this point in the album that I could tell that this album was meant to uh, very clearly indicate a paradigm shift for the group. It became very clear to me that this project was going to have a polarizing effect on the fans. You're either going to hate it or you're going to love it. There's no in between. And also made it clear to me that Injury Reserve is not afraid to take a risk, and they're not afraid to put their best foot forward in taking those risks. So I do respect them a lot for that. Moving on to track number 3, San Francisco with 3 S's. Um, some dim guitar riffs mixed with the vocal delivery create a very grunge sound, in my opinion. The drums do complement that tone very well. And the vocal delivery from Richie and featured artists, the Loopers, are packed to the brim with character. I mean, it's like WWE characters rapping almost to me. Really over the top, and it's a lot of fun. And honestly, the lyricism did not go unnoticed by me. I commend them for their commentary on contemporary life, what it's like to be alive nowadays. It's a demanding time and it's stressful, to say the least. Moving on to track number 4, entitled "Footwork in a Forest Fire." Atonal, a lot of atonal and extremely dissonant guitars, whispery vocals, and during the intro create a really uneasy energy. And you're not really sure how to feel. And it becomes frantic. It's almost like you're walking barefoot across some smoldering charcoals. And the vocal delivery, while being over the top, just like in the last track, is very appropriate, in my opinion. And it fits the song. It's setting a tone on purpose. And I hear a lot of desperation, frustration, and fear in this one. And it was really provocative in that way. Moving on to track number 5, Ground Zero. This song features a lot of chromatic tones being played by a guitar, a lot of vocal stutters, and psychedelic effects on the panning on the vocals, and the mix itself creates a really weird space sonically. And honestly, this song is probably what Death sounds like. If Death had a sound, that's what this song is. To be honest, it's harrowing experience. Moving on to track number 6, Smoke Don't Clear. Richie's vocals on this song are insane. Really grim, deep sounds coming from him. The instrumental itself is atonal, plenty of percussive elements, crazy break beats, and stuttering hi-hats, even some stuttering kicks, which I wasn't expecting to hear, and that was cool. And I could hear some samples throughout the song, and I couldn't tell if they were guitars or chainsaws, but anyway, it was a really nice sound. I really liked that. Track number 7, Talk Picks for You. There's a synth playing on this song that caught my attention. It almost sounds like a metallic whale that's singing, and it was, I don't know, the sound design on that was excellent. Like, it just sounds so cool to me. And I could hear an accompanying organ underneath it, really subtle, barely noticeable. And I think this song was just something about it. I don't know. It made me want to cry. It was really moving. And storytelling takes the center stage on this song. Richie was clearly speaking from the heart. And the detuned synths towards the end made me feel like the atoms in my body were all being vaporized, like, simultaneously. And then as the song kept going and it was about to end, it was almost as if like I was dying and the light was going out as the song eventually came to a close. Heavy stuff. Track number 8, Wild Wild West. This song felt punk to me, from the vocal delivery to the drums and the guitars. It felt like Richie was taking the listener to another dimension, but I wasn't super into this track. I couldn't tell you why. Moving on to track number 9, Postpartum. This song was genuinely strange, but featured a lot of engaging production for the instrumental. Still don't really know how I feel about this song. I don't know if I like it or not, but it is refreshing. I gotta say that. Track number 10, Knees. I think this song is probably what it feels like to move through gelatin. Like if you filled a pool up with just jello, and you dove into it, that's what this song is. There's a great verse from Steppa. As I mentioned, he is featured on a couple different parts throughout the album. And I think this song perfectly describes what it's like to be depressed and to feel like you're stuck in a rut. And it's grim. It's dreadful, to be honest. Another heavy song. And lastly, the closing track, By Storm, features a guitar-like synth playing towards the beginning with plenty of buzz and distortion on it. I think that I don't even know how to describe the song other than like this song it plays out like a group of people have just handed something to you and they're all smiling as they hand it to you, and you grab this thing from them and you're holding it in your hands, and you suddenly realize that this thing is dense and it's really heavy. and it's so heavy that your body starts to like sink into the ground, and you're starting to freak out, and you're looking at the people who just handed you this item, and they're still staring at you, and they're still smiling at you without, no break in that, and your body's sinking into the ground slowly because this thing is so massive and immense in terms of density, and you're just sinking into the ground, and they're just watching you sink, and they're smiling and watching you as you sink into the ground, and by the time the song's over, you're already underground. um, a heavy album. I think that this I don't know, I think this album was good. uh, it was a heavy experience. It was really harrowing, is probably the best word to use. Um, Evoked a lot of different emotions in me, a lot of sadness, a lot of dread, some frustration, sometimes a little bit of anger too. And to me, that's what music is about. Ultimately, I feel like music is supposed to evoke something strong in you, and this album definitely did that for me. But I do have to say that the production on this album is different. It's really different. And if you've never been exposed to anything that is unconventional, you may not like this album. If you were expecting another Injury Reserve album that sounds like the last few that they've put out, like their self-titled or Floss or Drive It Like It's Stolen, this album is completely left out of left field. It's not what you're expecting. And I respect Injury Reserve for taking those risks that they did on this project, because they gave us something really poignant, and something different, refreshing. It's not the only album of its kind to exist. I mean, if you've heard Death Grips or even JPEG Mafia, you're familiar with some of the production choices, and you're familiar with some of the sounds that you might expect to hear in their music. So, I mean, if you're used to it, you're used to it, and if you're not, it's cool. I think that if you've never heard music that's really different, and almost avant-garde, you might not like this album that much. But if that's your thing, I do recommend giving this album a listen. And if you are interested in jumping into that rabbit hole of avant-garde music, and this like postmodern sound that we have now that is coming from all sorts of different acts, I do recommend giving this album a listen. There's something to get out of every single song. So, if you're not looking for something that you want to come back to all the time, I do recommend it just for the experience of listening to it. So overall, it is really cool. But yeah, a good album. Kudos to Injury Reserve, and I'm really excited to hear whatever it is that they put out next. I'm going to be there to support them. Yeah, and I appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. If you've watched this far, and just thank you for your patience. I'm working on a couple other reviews as well. I'll keep you updated, keep you posted. Thank you. I appreciate it, and have a great day.